Hello, this is Forest Destiny, and I'm glad you're on my show again, or if you enjoy it or not. It seems that a lot of people like hearing my stories. I've been calling it story time on my YouTube, so you can hear some of my other stories if you wish to. And it would be more helpful if more people put more comments down or something. I don't know if people are just watching, 30 seconds of it, or if they're watching the whole show. It's kind of hard to tell on the YouTube page if, it just shows on, how many minutes is watched and stuff, So I don't know who's watching it fully and who's not. Either way, I'm glad I got sponsors, and I'm glad a lot of people are following me. So today I kind of want to do a show or a talk on my favorite country. And my favorite country is Vietnam. And I've been in 40 countries now around the world, and I have stayed thoroughly in countries for long periods of time. So I have been in many countries many times, and I've been into Vietnam for over a year, on and off with visas and stuff like this. And the reason why I will express to you about my love for Vietnam is going to be coming from me. It's going to come from of who I am and what Vietnam likes about me. So this is, when I'm going to talk about this is solely coming from my heart, my soul, and the things I did, and I will talk about travel experience of Vietnam, and I will discuss quite a bit about Vietnam. So I don't know how long this show will be. I'm recording it on my phone, and then I'll download it on my YouTube page. So quite possibly could be quite long, because I will talk about quite a bit about Vietnam. And first off, I just want to say that Vietnam is truly amazing, whether you like it or not. The history is phenomenal in Vietnam. Okay? I will express about the history. And the history of Vietnam, one thing about the country is they've never lost a war, ever. And almost every single great empire has attacked Vietnam. The great Mongol Empire, from Nepal and China. The America's attacked France, Britain, Russia. So many countries have attacked Vietnam, and maybe they were stationed there for quite some time, maybe many years or something. But sooner or later, Vietnam retaliated and won their space back, their land back, their people back. And this has happened throughout centuries and thousands of years. Vietnam has been attacked. It's a prime gold mine spot of a country. It's so beautiful and amazing. There's so much stuff. I mean, for instance, the biggest cave in the world is called Son Dong Cave. Sondong. I talked about a story time about me going there and almost getting arrested. And it's the biggest cave in the world. And the history goes back thousands of years in Vietnam. And, I want to talk a little bit about the history and stuff, because this is made about who Vietnam is today. And it's quite weird of a country, So anything I do say about Vietnam is I'm not being, ignorant, or I'm not trying to say anything bad about them. I just want to express the truth, and I want to express to you, the listener, about how truly amazing the country is, and the diversity of so much that's going on in this country throughout centuries and centuries. So when you go to Vietnam, they're the smallest people in the world. man, they're so small. I mean, they all come up to like my chest. And they're the skinniest people, but they eat like crazy. They eating all the time, and they drink a lot. But they're, for some reason, most of them, 90% of them, just stay small. You know, very small people. This probably has a lot to do with over the centuries that like Vietnam was a very, very poor country, and over the centuries and stuff, and rice. You know, a lot of people are familiar with rice. Well, rice doesn't have any nutrients. You can look this up. Rice is just carbohydrates. That's it. And our body starves off of minerals and vitamins. Everything on us, all of our organs, you know, all of our vessels, our blood, everything in our body starves off of minerals and vitamins. This is what, you know, our body breaks down. Our stomach and everything else breaks this stuff down. So rice is non-initial for a human being. I mean, most animals don't even eat rice. I mean, because rice has nothing to it. It has no smell, no nothing, no nutrients. And so I think over the years, this has made Vietnam smaller people. But regardless, the people and their come togetherness, their unity is phenomenal. Okay, so I will express this to you in some of the things and stories I've heard over the many months that I stayed in Vietnam, and a lot of stuff that I read. So, for instance, Vietnam, you know, has never lost a war, and the thing about what they have done over their past is very creative. You know, maybe you might have seen people in magazines or movies or something like this, or even in real life. You might have seen people with black teeth. And many people have a lot of, you know, discrepancy about, oh, that's because they're beautiful, or that's because that the village wanted to do that. This is all kind of like horse shit, honestly, because once I heard the truth about it, then I started looking it up. And this is the truth about it is during the time when like the Mongol Empire and China invaded, and even like the Vietnam War, Cambodia and Laos was also fighting too. So the Vietnam people kind of look Chinese. You know, they have the facial features and stuff of like a Chinese person. And so they would disguise themselves differently by such reactions like painting their teeth black. And then they would know, you know, like who was Chinese or who was Vietnamese. And very smart, you know, very intelligent. Another factor that they did over the course of wars and stuff is they changed their last names. They did this on purpose also to see who was who and what city you came from and this kind of things. And either way, like I say, you can look up the history. I'm not going to talk about the history about, you know, Vietnam. I want to express to you about the Vietnam and what I went through, you know. But Vietnam history is very wonderful, and it's very exciting to read and to listen to the people that talk about their history. One thing about most Asian countries is they don't really know history of the world. They don't even really teach it in any of the schools. None of the schools teach history classes, almost. Maybe 1 out of 100 schools teach history class. And this goes throughout the whole region of Southeast Asia, from Indonesia all the way to pretty much India. Even India lacks a lot of history too. But like Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, none of these countries really teach any history. Besides, they only teach their normal history. And they really don't even really teach too much of their normal history. But the parents teach their children a lot about the history, about what has happened over the course of, you know, the country's lifetime. And for instance, like Vietnam has never lost their language. It's one of the oldest languages in the world too. And they have never lost any of their land. So this tells you something about how the country survives and how they do good. And I like that, you know, I like the unity. And that's the second part that I want to say about that, why I personally love Vietnam so much, is because of the family. The family bond is the strongest I've ever seen. Yes, of course, many families are strong, especially in the Asian culture. You know, many families get together and stuff, but nothing like I see in Vietnam. Every single day, you will never ever see, I mean, you will, but it's very rare that you'll ever see anybody that is just in a group of like 2 or 3 people. It's always a bundle of people. I'm talking 6 people or more all the time, anywhere you go. Restaurants, the side of the road to eat, family food gatherings, everything. They're always inviting friends, family, neighbors, and it's always big parties of always eating. And I'm talking like lunch and dinner. They don't really eat too much breakfast. It's more like they just eat lunch. If they do eat breakfast in Vietnam, it's a very quick snack, maybe like a bowl of soup or something, and then they're off to work or they're off doing their daily activity. And then for lunchtime, they really sit down. I mean, basically the whole country almost shuts down. Even in some of the cities in Vietnam, they like close everything. It's crazy. Like, you can't even find a restaurant open, you know. They close everything, and they don't close it for like 1 hour. It's closed for 2, 3, 4 hours. So anyways, and then dinner time is their feasting time, and they're always, so many people are always just getting together and eating. They eat like crazy. I'm talking big plates. I mean, you can watch YouTube or, you know, videos of people and the streets and how they have all their food. You think like America wastes food and stuff? Man, Vietnam wastes so much food. But they eat a lot of food also. They eat very healthy too. I mean, Vietnam wastes no food as far as it growing. They waste food once it's cooked, and then they like, yeah, they'll make something fresh the next day. They don't even really hardly have refrigerators in their house, and if they do, it's only to hold the food that they cooked that day. So the food that they have, you know, like we consider it weeds. You know, all the dandelions and weeds and everything else we are picking out of our flower bed and all this. Maybe you might have been picking one day, or, you know, scrubbing the weeds out of your flower bed, and then you smell stuff, you know, or you have an aroma to something. And a lot of this stuff is good for us. You know, a lot of these weeds are like natural mint and basil and oregano, and a bunch of other really good healthy benefits for us. And you know, America's throwing it away, burning it in their brush pile, or, you know, and Vietnam's eating it. And Vietnam is like, you literally can go into like small towns and stuff, and you will see them picking on the side of the road, and then they have their little box cart or their little stand that they're cooking with, and they're throwing everything in there. You know, they use everything all the time. You know, you see people like pulling out all the seaweed in the oceans and stuff and using this constantly. And very, very healthy, good foods is another reason why I love Vietnam. And the food chain is a wide variety. I mean, I'm sure you've seen all the wide varieties, such as like in China, and they're eating bats and all this other stuff. Well, Vietnam does the same. And you can find any kind of food you want in Vietnam. You can find anything from bats, rats, cats, dogs. You know, I've eaten famous ostrich there. And ostrich is absolutely the best meat in the world. If you never had ostrich, I highly, highly recommend you getting it. And do not cook it. It's a very like thin meat. It like melts in your mouth. So it has to kind of be ate like sushi. I mean, you can cook it a little bit, but it's kind of like a rare meat. So if you don't like rare meat, don't even waste it, because ostrich is quite expensive in America, but it's very cheap in Vietnam. You can get a nice big plate full of meat for like $10-15. It's very, very cheap in Vietnam, and that same plate in America is going to cost you minimum $40. But if you get a chance and you really like delicacy food, ostrich has been the best food. You know, I've been a chef for many, many years, and ostrich is by far the best meat. Blows away sushi, any kind of chicken, beef, anything. It's the wonderful. So absolutely try that if you get a chance. And man, I have so much to say. You know, it's already been like 16 minutes. You know, I got so much to say. Maybe I do like a part 1, part 2, part 3 or something, because there's so much to talk about Vietnam. I really love the country, and the country has been so good to me. And so let's just back up about how Vietnam is to Americans, because many people are probably watching this and probably like, you know, how do you like Vietnam so much? Like, isn't Vietnam like we went to war with them and all this? Well, Vietnam has a different characteristics of how they think about life and stuff. You know, even I've asked people because in Vietnam they love Americans. Believe me, 100%. And not just blonde hair, you know, because I'm blonde, you know, or my eye color or my beard or something. Of course, this helps out a little bit because none of them really have any facial hair, and none of them have blonde hair, you know. Pretty much all of Asia is either black hair or brown hair, you know. And so this does help out a little bit, but I can honestly say I've traveled with many, many people weeks on end. I traveled with this one guy, and he had red hair, and he was from Holland, and you know, Amsterdam area, and he traveled with me on bike for 1 month, and he was a good-looking guy also. So even before, like, I would travel for many times, and I thought Vietnam just liked me, you know, because of like my blonde hair, and you know, I'm an outsider, and I'm pretty outgoing and friendly and always smiling and having a good time with people. So this guy went with me, and you know, he was pretty, you know, outgoing and too, but more or less a little bit more quiet about things, and wasn't so much pursuing, you know, activities like I did. You know, like I was all about, when I went traveling on my bike, I would camp outside. I had a hammock with a mosquito net, and I would camp outside. Maybe you guys have been following my posts on Facebook and stuff, and have seen many, many things of what I've, you know, but I didn't always describe, you know, a lot. You know, I was always busy going, doing things, talking, and always hanging out with people. Always drinking, always eating for hours and hours, talking, Google translating back and forth. You know, this stuff takes a long time. And anyways, I traveled with this guy, and you know, then this was like my option, you know, to think like, okay, I'm going to see how much Vietnam people truly love me, you know, or do they love white people? You see what I'm saying? So because before, when I would travel, you know, they were all like, you know, gather around me like crazy. Like, I will explain to you this. I will walk into a restaurant, and I would feel like I am Brad Pitt walking on the red carpet. Like I have a Grammy every single day of the week. Every single day of the year, it was a Grammy. I would walk into a restaurant, and literally, this is no joke, these aren't lies. I'm not fiberglassing it. I'm not boasting myself. I'm not being conceited. I'm telling you the honest truth. And so I would walk into a restaurant, and literally everyone would stop eating. Like, stop eating. And they would all stare at me. You know, and I'm a type of person where, like, I'm not looking at TripAdvisor, you know, or even like Google reviews and stuff when I'm way far out in the country or something. Basically how I rated restaurants was when I drove past restaurants and I seen a large amounts of groups there, then I thought, okay, that's a good restaurant. Many of the locals know where they want to eat. So, like Google reviews and this kind of stuff, I would do it in like cities. But even in cities, sometimes I kind of get tired of the tourist and the touristy, problems and dilemma. It's always the same. You can't, why go to a country if you just want to interact with the white people or your same people? You go to a country to interact with the local people, to learn about the culture, to express yourself and them express to you, and the local people don't go to the tourist places. They don't have money, for instance, for one thing, and for two, they stay with their own people. Sometimes the people might go to the touristy places to get a girl or to talk to English speakers, to better themselves of English or something, but most of the time they stay away from the restaurant area. Like in Asia and stuff, you meet a lot of people that will meet you at parks or even on the streets, and they will ask you, they'll have a book or something, and they'll ask you, hey, I'm learning English, do you mind speaking to me for 5-10 minutes? And then you're like, yeah, okay, no problem. And then it turns into 20-30 minutes. But anyways, but they don't really bother you. In Asia, people are very respectful. They don't really bother you too much. So anyways, when I was traveling, like I said, I'm very outgoing and I really want to learn about the culture and, learn about what's going on and stuff. So, I see a large amounts of people, and I'm not talking about 10, 20 people in a restaurant. I mean, you're talking 50, 60, or even 100 people in a restaurant, these restaurants are masses. I'm sure you've probably seen me take large amounts of pictures of this kind of stuff and how many tables and chairs they have. And these restaurants fill up at nighttime. And like I said, it's their feasting grounds is at nighttime. They're done with work and they're always just eat, and drink. And anyways, I will walk into these restaurants. Everything would stop. All eyes on me. And then I kind of got used to it after a while. I'm just like, yeah, okay, hello, wave to everyone. Hello. In Vietnam, it would be xin chào. And then I would walk in, and literally it would be like a battle of them trying to get me to sit with their table. And I will express this to you. It's always much better to travel in most of your countries in the world alone. Even if you have a best partner or, a wife or a girlfriend or whatever, boyfriend, honestly, it's really better to travel alone. Yes, I understand safety features and stuff like this, can be a problem. But if you do travel in another country, I will express that you should travel with the same gender. Because one thing is, at least in Asia, I will express, at least in Asia is where I'm referring to most of this conversation, or Vietnam. And the thing is Asia is very respectful and stuff, so they automatically think that if you are together with a boy and a girl, that they think that you're on your anniversary, you're on your honeymoon. And I mean, it's not just like 10% or something, it's literally like 90% of the whole entire country thinks this. It's crazy. So they don't bother you. They don't even bother to hardly say hello. They don't, or if they do, it's just like a quick hello, how are you, how do you like our country, and that's about it. But if you travel alone, or if you travel with the same gender, male, female, man, bam, they all come to you. And I mean, literally, they come to you. They walk up to you from the side of the road. They stop their cars. They drive their bike next to you, and they talk to you. They don't feel like they're bothering you, especially when you're alone. When you're alone, it's even more, because they feel like, why are you alone? Their very first questions in Asia is, where's your wife? Why aren't you married? these questions all the time. Oh, why don't you have kids? All these questions all the time are always being answered. What are you doing here? These are like your main questions all the time in Asia. So when you go into, I just wanted to kind of express that a little bit, because it's really a huge difference. Because the first time I came to Asia, I came with a girl, and the second time, this time when I came to Asia, and I came by myself, and it was a huge difference between even the same countries that I went to before with a girl, such as Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, and then I came to these same countries now by myself. It was a huge difference, a huge impact difference of how many people came up to me, how much more I got involved into the culture, traditions. I mean, so many people asked to, invite me to their table, to invite me to their house, to invite me to a waterfall, to drink beer or eat rice or anything like this. It was a big difference. So I just wanted to express this to you a little bit, because a lot of people don't really know this, and sometimes they figure out later on in life or something, but if you're traveling, just keep this in the back of your mind, because it really plays a big difference of a role, So anyways, when I go into these restaurants by myself, I feel the red carpet's pulled out. Everyone stops eating. Everyone's staring at me. I mean, literally turning around like, wow, there's a white guy in our restaurant, And so I walk up, and then the very first tables are fighting over me. I mean, literally, they're kicking chairs out or stand up and pull their chair out, and hey, sit. Sometimes they don't really know too much English and far away from the tourist areas, but sometimes they do. You'd be surprised how many people actually know English in Vietnam, and you'd be surprised how many people know your basic words, like sit, hello, eat, things like this. And anyway, so I got used to this. I mean, literally after 10 restaurants, every single time it was doing this all the time, I pretty much got used to it, Like I was just like a star, I walk into the restaurant and act like I owned it, I'd be like already start waving, and it was just, I got used to it. I got part of their culture because they love us so much. And it's crazy to say, and it's sad what happened in Vietnam, 40 years ago or something. And, but, even when I've asked people and talked to people about this, why do you love Americans so much? And the number one reason, which is another sad story, that they love America and the rest of the world primarily, is because of Hollywood. Okay? There are so many people in the world love Hollywood, especially after like the Marvel and all these other things came out. And this is how I got my nickname, Thor. I already knew I was a Viking before, but now I'm really truly a Viking. And these people literally started calling me Thor, and they can't pronounce the THO, so they say Thaw. They say thaw, it's thaw. And at first I'm like, what's thaw, But they would like put on their Google and show me images of Thor and, Chris Hemsworth that stole my identity. And he would be like, oh, you look. And then I'd be like, yeah. So, anyways, I would go and they would pull these chairs out and I would sit. Okay. And I would sit and I would eat, drink, and I really love Vietnam of how everyone is involved with everything. So even like when you're at the dinner table and you serve your food. I mean, this is primarily like Asian stuff, I mean, it's kind of faded away in America, people are eating before other people. But in Asia, the whole continent of Asia, pretty much, you start eating when everyone else starts eating. This is kind of like the number one rule, and no one really gets up from the table until everyone's done eating. They kind of have a little bit of the old traditional rules like this, And anyways, you eat, and man, they don't stop feeding you. I don't care how many bowls of food you eat. So after a while, you kind of have to learn their tricks. So you have to eat kind of slow, you know, and you kind of have to like fool them a little bit. Like you eat one bowl, and then, you know, and then you'll be like, oh, you know, I'm full. And then no matter what, no matter how many times you say I'm full, no matter how many times you stop eating and you try to relax or something, they're filling your bowl with more food and more food. All the time your bowl is so full. So you kind of have to trick them a little bit and waste a little bit more time or something like this, because you never ever sit at a table for 30 minutes. It's always 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours long, all the time. You know, and another thing, when they drink, they literally, every single time somebody takes one sip of their drink, a beer, or they'll have like rice wine. So this rice wine is kind of nasty. I'm sure you've probably seen it in my films and stuff before. It's like a clear vodka looking, you know, and it's kind of has like a vodka flavor. It's quite nasty, but honestly, it will F you up. I mean, 3-4 shots of it and you're already buzzed. And their shots are very small in Vietnam. I mean, literally, they're like this half of our shots, or a quarter of our shot, or a third of our shots. You know, they're very small. And but anyways, every single time they take a sip of a beer, take a little shot of a sip, they are cheersing, like how we in America, you know, we cheers, you know, oh, cheers, you know, and basically you only do it once or twice, you know, in the evening, or maybe somebody drunk might do it 4 or 5 times, but in Vietnam, you do it 150 times. Every single time. And the food is the same as the beer. You don't just drink one beer. Man, they keep pouring. They keep ordering. And beer and food is so cheap. Beer is so cheap. You can buy a beer on the streets for a quarter, 25 cents, a fourth of a dollar. A normal glass of a beer. Of course, it's, you know, it's draft beer, but it's so cheap. Crazy cheap. And they even have specials on like bottles of beers and stuff. You can get a bottle for under $1 or $1, you know, or sometimes even 2 for $1, you know, in bars and stuff. Very cheap. Of course, this is not the tourist areas where they're ripping off all the tourists and they're charging $2-3 for a beer, and the tourist people automatically think that this is cheap. You know, Australians have kind of ruined Southeast Asia, honestly. You know, I'm not trying to talk bad about them, but since Australia is so expensive for beer, I mean, it's like $20 for a beer in Australia. I mean, Australian dollars. So it would be like, you know, I don't know, $14 or something, you know, and it's so expensive. It's crazy expensive in Australia. So all the people from Australia make all this good money, and they save their money, and then they come to Southeast Asia. So when a beer costs $2-3, they're like, oh, they're drinking like crazy. They don't care, you know what I mean, because of the price difference. But for the rest of the world is quite different. You know what I mean? Even like you can go to Germany or something like this, and you go to Germany and you can get a pint of beer for like $4, you know, or maybe cheaper. It's really cheap in a lot of countries in Europe. So even like they would come to, you know, Southeast Asia and kind of complain about the prices, you know. But again, many people are on holidays and stuff, so they don't care either, you know. But when you go out to the local area, everything is much cheaper, half price of the tourist area. So when you go there and you just drink, so they have a saying when you cheers in Vietnam. And basically they say, Một, hai, ba, zo! And then, man, they get into it every single time. And sometimes they get into it so much where they're like, you know, Một, hai, ba, zo, Một, hai, ba, zo. And they do this like 3-4 times, and then they're cheersing, and everyone's yelling and clapping and cheer over a little sip. You know, it's like, it's so funny. You're like, dude, it's just one sip, you know? It's like, you know, in other cultures, people are pounding a whole entire beer can away, or something like this. And no, in Vietnam, it's different. So everyone gets into it. So when you go to these tables at these restaurants, man, literally, you walk in and they treat you like a king. They feed you everything. And, when I first started coming to Vietnam and approaching this kind of difference, I would kind of be leaving or something, and then other tables would be like, oh, or come and actually grab me and pull me to their table, and they would be like, oh, come sit, drink. And so after a while, after 4 or 5 restaurants, every single time this happened, basically I invited myself to the table. And I would have my main table I would sit at. Maybe I would try to find a young group of people, or hopefully somebody might know some English or something, because it's definitely much easier to have a better time when people know English and you're not Google translating the whole entire time. But, and I will say this about Google Translate, and if you do travel, never ever make a full sentence. It never ever works. It never will work. So anytime you Google Translate or something like this, you have to only use keywords. If you say, are you having a wedding next week? You can't say all these words, okay? Because it literally will come out in some crazy, format, and people are like, what are you talking about? So you have to say are you, and then you enter that, and then you say wedding next weekend, and then maybe you might even have to rephrase it in a different format again and say it usually backwards, because their language is backwards. So you have to say next weekend wedding ? And then they would understand, and then they'd be like, oh, you go, something like this. This is just an example what I'm giving. So I've always learned to shorten the phrases, just use key words, and then maybe try to find out in their language, simple key words about you, I, things like this. And then you can express to them, in their language, I, and then you can show them the Google Translate of the sentence. So this always helps, just to give you a keynote if you want to travel. So anyways, these restaurants, basically I would just make my way around. And I would go and sit, eat, drink, and then I would make my way around. And I would make my way around, and literally almost every single table. It would be 20 tables, you would be so drunk. So drunk, and so just to be on the safe side, if you're traveling or something, make sure you know where you're going to stay, or is there a safe spot to sleep or camp close by, something like this. But I will say that 80% of the time, at least 80% of the time, somebody in the restaurant would ask me where I sleep. Maybe they might mention a hotel name or something, and then I would say, no, my hammock, and I would do this and show them a picture and stuff, because the language is quite difficult in Vietnam to learn, and some of the words are extremely hard, and if you can't pronounce them exactly correct, they think you're crazy or something, because they'll mean a different word. So anyways, I would be like, oh, my hammock, I sleep, and then they'll be like, oh, no, you sleep at my house. And I would go to their house and again, eat, drink, sleep, wake up, eat, drink, maybe sleep again. Maybe I stay at their house for a day or two, and then I go and travel again. All the time this has happened. So I did this for months and months, and then I did it for, I think, 5 or 6 months. And then I met the guy from Holland in a hostel. And let me just express to you about hostels real quick, that do not be frightened. There's so many people in a hostel that speak English and are watching out for everybody's safety and all this kind of stuff. There's nothing I've ever experienced in a hostel besides people stealing, and this is kind of like stupid, honestly, for people. They get so used to, and comfortable putting their cell phone down on their bed, go take a shower or something. And honestly, this is stupid. You should not do this. Lock your cell phone up in your locker, put it in at least in your backpack or something. Don't just leave it hanging out. I mean, this is really stupid. There's so many people in a hostel, and anyone could walk in the hostel and take something. I mean, there's people that, are taking a shower in the morning time or something, and there's people leaving the hostel in the morning time. And I mean, once somebody steals something, well, what are they going to do? Like, they can't track down this person. And even if they call the embassy or something like this, or the airport or the police, they can't stop somebody, at an airport. Hey, you have this person's phone. The person would be like, what are you talking about? I have no phone. So it's just, you have to be careful about hostels, about stealing. And that's it. And honestly, stealing isn't really that bad. I mean, more pickpocketers are on the streets than people stealing in hostels. But besides that, hostels are very safe and very informative. In hostels, not only do you get the people to speak English with, or you get people, that you're more comfortable with, your own kind of race or whatever, however you want to describe it, but you get people to tell you things, or you get people to invite you to things, and you learn more about things. For instance, in hostels, they will tell you the cheapest, activities to do, scuba diving or trekking, mountain climbing, or going into a cave, or even sneaking into a way, or trying to cheat away, wake up early in the morning, go here, and then they won't catch you, this, that. You find out information so much in a hostel. Not only this, you get to hang out with people, go to your restaurants, you find out your favorite foods, the famous restaurants in the area, local restaurants that are never mentioned on TripAdvisor or Google reviews. You can get invited to places. Hey, we're going to the museum. Hey, we're going trekking all day tomorrow. Do you want to come? So, this sometimes eases up on when you want to travel alone, because sometimes traveling alone is better also than traveling with a group of people. I honestly think that it's the best. And I met many, many people to say the same exact thing. So this at least gives you a feel to when you do come back to the hostel, you get to meet up with people and you get to play games or hang out, watch a movie together or anything, drink beer together. So this helps, this breaks that barrier to when you are by yourself and meeting the locals, because sometimes it gets too overwhelming. Too many people are coming at you all the time, fighting over you, I mean, literally fighting over you, like, no, come to my house. No, you come eat with me. And so anyways, when I did this for months and months, I was thinking like, wow, all these people love me like crazy. Why? Okay, you love Americans, So I got to travel with this guy. I met him, in a hostel, and I traveled with him, and I told him how I travel, and I said, like, I camp out and I use my hammock and I try to meet the locals, and he was quite interested, and he's like, okay, sounds good, but he's never done this before. He's traveled many countries, but he's never interacted with the local people like I was expressing to him. And he was all for it. So we went and traveled, and literally, he loved it, okay? He loved it. I'm not going to express every single thing we did, but my main point is that I was saying before, he's a good-looking guy, he speaks English, but he's from a different country. So this way, I kind of was like highlighting, okay, does Vietnam truly love Americans, or do they just love like a good-looking guy or a white person or something like this? And so anyways, I found out my true markings. So we would go to places, and again, they would all come to us and stuff because we were two guys, you know. So, and they would come to us, and soon as we introduced ourselves, you know, and told us our names and where we were from, man, they went crazy over me all the time. It was so weird, you know. And so anyways, another thing about Vietnam, and I traveled with another guy from Australia. I traveled with this guy for a couple weeks on a bike, and we went to a lot of places, a lot of local areas and stuff. And this guy is tattooed from ear to toes, everywhere tattoos. So Vietnam people love tattoos. And again, I try to see, okay, do they love Americans? Do they love... So this time, actually, he kind of got more attention because of all his tattoos. But regardless, we still had an amazing time. Both of them, really, really, truly amazing time. Both of them loved the way I traveled. You know, will never, ever forget me and how I travel and the things we did. And truly, truly amazing. So I'm going to sign off here. It's getting long, 46 minutes now, and I'm going to make another video because I didn't think I would talk this long, but I love the country. There's so much to talk about. Maybe it might be a 2-3 part series, you know, but I just want to express to you how much I truly love this country. And how wonderful it is, you know, and I haven't even really broke the barrier on it, you know. I just starting this conversation. And also I'm expressing to you a lot about other things and tactics and, you know, key points of travel that maybe you missed in my stories or something, and I want to express to you about how this kind of things, you know, interact. Maybe hopefully I can kind of get more supporters and stuff also. I know that it seems that you guys kind of like my long videos, but I don't know if you like them this long. You know, I don't really have a piece of paper or anything. I'm just kind of running this off of my head, and I'm trying to do what I can with a cell phone. And anyways, I just want to say that keep supporting me, and I will make another phase. Many phases most likely, because there's so much to talk about Vietnam. I mean, so much I have to say. It's such a beautiful country. It's amazing, and it's truly sad of how many Americans think, you know, they're not invited there or something like that, and how much Vietnam people love Americans. So if you ever get a chance, visit Vietnam. You know, it's really, really, really amazing. And everyone has pretty much had a good time in Vietnam, besides some encounters, which I'll talk about in the next video, on corruption or stealing or manipulating people, and the money systems and things like this. So I have a lot to talk about, and so keep supporting me. Forest Destiny with an E at the end, not a Y. So, you know, I also have Instagram at Bro Looney, short for Brother Looney. And so I hope you guys enjoy this during your quarantine time, and stay safe out there. And, you know, wear your mask. You never know, that virus might come through it. Cheers.